Hi class, I wanted to put out a video concerning your reference listing assignment. I think the reference listing assignment is one of the most important assignments of this semester because it allows you to gather all of your references before you go do everything else. I used to find it frustrating when I was a student when professors or teachers would make us gather our references or resources before we actually wrote the paper. But once you have written a few papers, and if you're doing your own research one day, you will certainly learn that this is a critical step to doing good writing or doing good research. Most importantly, if you are doing your own research someday, you have to know everything that's in the field. You have to know everything that's related to your experiment or your research that's out there before you can really do your own research. So this is very important. So for this assignment, you will need 10 peer-reviewed articles for your reference listing. Now, I recommend that you have five articles that support the pro side of your argument and 5 articles that support the con side of your argument. However, in practice, some of these will blend into both areas. I just want you to use that as a loose guideline, but I do make you identify it on the assignment, though, just so you're thinking about it. But on the assignment, you can say it's for both sides. That's okay, too. So you have to have 10, and you have to use 10 in your paper. Now the module is set up so you can learn more about what a peer-reviewed article is. And your 10 references, they have to be 10 peer-reviewed articles. So please go through all the module material, but I want to just talk a little bit about what is a peer-reviewed article. Because it really wasn't until I was using peer-reviewed articles for a little while that I realized what they actually were. Because it's quite the process to get your piece published in a peer-reviewed journal. So let's take a very high-end, famous psychological journal, the American Psychologist. This is a high-end journal that big research experiments and things like that are published in on a regular basis. Now let's say an author named Dr. Michael Hinton has just completed a research project that supports and demonstrates that children in high school who spend more than 10 hours a day on Facebook have significant clinical narcissistic traits. That would be an interesting finding, maybe, and it may be a very important finding. So he did this whole experiment, this research, this big project, and that was his conclusion. He writes up this beautiful manuscript, this beautiful article explaining everything, and he wants to publish it. So the American Psychologist would be a great journal to publish that in, perhaps. He sends it off to the journal. Now what happens is then that his piece gets distributed to maybe 10 other experts in the field. So 10 other experts, professors at different colleges who will review his piece of work for its merit, for its preciseness, for its research quality. And there's a lot of benchmarks that he has to hit in order for them to say, yes, we will publish this in the American Psychologist. 9 times out of 10 or higher than that, they will send the article back to Dr. Hinton and say, okay, this is pretty good, but it needs to have this, this, and this, and then come back to us. Then Michael Hinton has to do this, this, and this, and resubmit it, and then maybe it will get accepted then. That process can go on for a year before the actual piece of work gets published. So when you read something in a high-end peer-reviewed journal, you're reading something that the authors have put a lot of work into. So that's what a peer-reviewed article is, and that's what goes into it. That's why they're also a lot better than Wikipedia, because if I wanted to right now, I could go on Wikipedia or go somewhere else and find someone who states that high schoolers are narcissistic, but they have not done the research and it hasn't gone through the stringent peer review process that Dr. Hinton's research went through. And that's why there's so much merit and so much emphasis on using peer-reviewed articles. So please try to keep that in mind. It's not just to make everyone's life harder, including Dr. Hinton's. Okay. This is also, guys, why we cite sources when we write. When I first started to write scientifically, this was another thing that frustrated me. Why do I have to cite something every time it comes up in my paper? Well, you have to cite it because it wasn't your piece of work. And this is something I will be very stringent on in the first and final drafts. And you will learn more about that as the semester goes on, and I'll talk more about it when the first draft comes about. However, think about all the work that Dr. Hinton just did to get his piece of work published. So if you state in your paper, high school students who are on Facebook more than 10 hours a day exhibit significant narcissistic symptoms. That has to be cited because you didn't find that out. Dr. Hinton worked for 2.5 years to come to that conclusion. So his work needs to be cited. And the reader is also going to want to find out where you found that information from, which would be Dr. Hinton. That's why you have to cite it right there. And it's not good enough just to throw it at the end of the paper in the reference listing. Okay. So I will be giving you feedback, of course, on your reference listing assignments. I'll be highlighting pieces of work that are not peer-reviewed and asking you to find other pieces. When I ask you to find other pieces of work, guys, please go find other pieces of work. It is amazing sometimes. I have asked people to go find other pieces of work because they get their sources from Psychology Today or some news website or something, and they don't do it. And again, I'm asking you to please find 10 peer-reviewed references. Okay. One really easy way to find peer-reviewed references that's not listed, or I don't think is described in the material that's in the module here, and that is a technique called treeing. That's how I learned to find references really quickly. Now, treeing is this. Let's say you have Dr. Hinton's piece of work. And Dr. Hinton, before he gets into his own experiment, it is APA protocol to review all of the research that relates to his experiment that's already been done. That's called a literature review. You have to tell your reader, all of this has already been done relating to high schoolers and narcissism and Facebook, and these are all the interesting things. This is this is my experiment and my research. But in that literature review, Dr. Hinton's probably going to cite like 30 different other pieces of work, 30 different authors who have already done work in this area. And if you're doing research in that area, you have 30 other sources right there. Now, the art of treeing is just reading through Dr. Hinton's article, finding where he cites other interesting pieces of research, and then go track those articles down. And you can do that through the databases at Fort Hays' library, electronic library, easily. So often, once you get the hang of that, you will find that you will have maybe 15 or 20 sources, and then suddenly you'll have way too much for read. You will have way too much to read for this paper, which is a good problem to have. You can have more than 10 references. It just might get hard to read that many references in the period of time that we have for this class. You can also get rid of references. So let's say you have 10 peer-reviewed references for your assignment here. Then you start reading through them and you just realize that some of them are not good and you do not want them. You don't have to keep them. You just got to find some to replace them. You just need a minimum of 10 used in your paper. So you can always substitute other ones in or add more on. That's not a problem at all. Now, um, I think there was one other small thing that I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember it now. So I don't think it was all that important. The reference listing assignment, guys, again, is I think one of the most important assignments of the semester to really get the ball rolling. I just remembered what I wanted to tell you about, and that is you do not have to read all your references, you do not have to read everything prior to turning this assignment in. Right after you turn this assignment in, or before, I recommend you start reading everything, but I try to structure the class again where now you're going to have a little bit of time after you turn this assignment in to start reading your references and doing that. One of our next upcoming assignments is the note card and outline assignment. For that assignment, you will have to have had all of your references read so you can complete that assignment. But just please keep that in mind right now. Okay, I think that's everything then, guys. I'm glad I remembered that. As always, please email me with any questions. I hope that the semester is going well for you so far and that things are going along okay.